Imagine a country where trust in the media is so low, it ranks below even Congress. But this isn't some far-off regime. It's happening right here in America. And as frustration grew, something unexpected happened. Trump emerged as the favorite for 2024, fueled by a wave of support from people who feel ignored, silenced, and misled. So why? Because people began to question what the Democrats are really up to. From tactics that could reshape swing states to former Democratic allies now backing Trump, the system itself was put under a spotlight. This election wasn't just about party lines. It was about the direction of the entire country. First, there was a growing sense that the Democratic Party was manipulating demographics in key swing states, all in an effort to tip the electoral scales. Think about it. We're talking about strategic, targeted efforts to increase immigration specifically in states where just a few thousand votes could have changed the outcome. This wasn't about immigration policy, it was about creating a one-party system where swing states no longer swing. Elon Musk spoke about this in a revealing interview with Tucker Carlson, comparing it to the way authoritarian regimes eliminate opposition.
Just like California is a single-party state, that's a supermajority Dem state in California.
Because of immigration?
Yes.
Has it improved the state?
No, it's not. And California just passed, which is shocking. It's hard to believe this is even real. But California just passed a law making it illegal to require voter ID in any election at all in California.
And let's be real, a system where only one party has control is far from a democracy. Does that sound like the America people signed up for? It sounds more like China to me, and it didn't stop there. The Democratic Party wasn't just facing backlash for their policies, they were also losing support from unexpected corners. Longtime allies jumped ship, and this shift sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Take Robert F. Kennedy Jr., for example. Once a prominent Democrat and a well-known environmental lawyer, he threw his weight behind Trump, frustrated by what he saw as the Democrats' relentless campaign to silence independent voices and maintain control. Kennedy didn't just change his mind, he called out the Democrats for abandoning democracy itself, accusing them of running legal warfare against any opposition to keep their grip on power. Then there was Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic congresswoman and 2020 presidential candidate who, after years of loyalty to the party, left in 2022. This year, she was firmly in Trump's corner, emphasizing that he was the leader who could prevent the country from spiraling into multiple wars. And what about the tech giants? Most people already know about Elon Musk, but also Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, all major players in Silicon Valley, either openly supported Trump or stepped back from their previous alignment with the Democrats in unexpected ways. Musk, who owns X, took drastic steps to remove the perceived liberal bias on his platform, making it more free than it had ever been. He also mentioned in his interview with Tucker Carlson some other reasons why he decided to support Trump. On the other hand, Zuckerberg, while not directly endorsing Trump, pushed back against the Biden administration's censorship efforts, a quiet but notable shift that could have influenced the election's balance. And Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, and also the owner of the Washington Post, dropped a bombshell. For the first time in 36 years, the Washington Post wouldn't endorse any candidate. For decades, they backed Democrats, and what happened in the end? They chose neutrality. And in a recent opinion piece, Bezos himself admitted that the media was losing credibility at an alarming rate, comparing the American press's reputation to Congress's, a shocking low. Look at his own words. "Our profession is now the least trusted of all. Something we are doing is clearly not working." Let me give an analogy. Voting machines must meet two requirements. They must count the vote accurately, and people must believe they count the vote accurately. The second requirement is distinct from, and just as important as the first. It would be easy to blame others for our long and continuing fall in credibility, and therefore decline in impact. But a victim mentality will not help. Complaining is not a strategy. We must work harder to control what we can control to increase our credibility. By stepping back, Bezos signaled that the media's credibility crisis was real and couldn't be ignored. And yes, for Trump, who long accused the media of being biased against him, this was practically an endorsement in disguise. Here is another example of the media's role. For years, Americans watched as mainstream media outlets spun stories, sometimes outright misrepresenting events to fit a particular narrative. Remember the infamous CNN clip from the Kenosha protests? Flames were raging in the background, buildings were being destroyed, and yet the reporter described it as a mostly peaceful protest. This wasn't a one-off incident. It is part of a pattern that erodes the public's trust in the media. Bezos acknowledged this issue in his op-ed, saying that the media needs to be accurate and, more importantly, has to be perceived as accurate. Right now, they are failing on both fronts, and as a result, Americans are turning away from traditional news sources. For Trump, who often clashed with the media, this lack of trust in mainstream outlets works in his favor, making his claims of media bias seem more credible to a public that was increasingly skeptical. Now, let's not forget about predictive markets. Trump wasn't just leading in the polls, he dominated the betting odds. Platforms like Polymarket, a predictive market running on blockchain technology, showed Trump as the overwhelming favorite, with over 65% of bets on his victory. This wasn't just a random chance. Predictive markets are often seen as indicators of public sentiment, and the data here was clear. People were betting on a Trump win. The financial markets reflected this shift too. The stock prices of companies likely to benefit from a Trump presidency surged, signaling that investors believed a Trump win was likely, and perhaps more importantly, good for business. It was almost as if the markets were quietly preparing for a major shift, anticipating a return to policies that favored economic growth over the current administration's regulations. So here we are. Trump's support wasn't just about loyalty or partisanship. It was about a collective realization. People woke up to the idea that something wasn't right with the current system. They saw the Democrats as actively pushing for a future that many Americans didn't want, a future where the media was biased, tech giants controlled narratives, and swing states no longer decided elections. This election was about more than policies or party lines. It was about the very structure of democracy and whether Americans felt they still had a voice in it. As the voting day approached, the choice became clearer. For those who believed in a fair, transparent system, Trump became the preferred candidate, not because he was perfect, but because he represented a pushback against forces that many felt were eroding the foundations of democracy. This wasn't just another political cycle, it was a reckoning, a moment where Americans decided if they wanted real democracy or a managed version of it. And that's why Trump emerged as the favorite and ultimately won the election. His victory was more than just a political shift. It was a message from Americans demanding change, accountability, and a return to their values. This election proved that millions were ready to push back against the establishment, choosing a leader who would stand up for their voice in democracy. And of course, if you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on more in-depth breakdowns of what's happening in the crypto, political, and economic realms. That's it for today, guys, so stay curious and stay hodling.